What's up, guys? It's Kictor, and welcome to the reading of Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. It's not even the Grandmaster, it's just Grandmaster. Okay, this will be my second time reading this. However, the first time I read it, it was like I watched the Donghua and read some of the manhua, and I was kind of just like jumping in between all the different series. So I don't think my first read through experience was really like complete. I was kind of like all over the place. So I'm very excited to kind of congruently like read through this together and understand what's going on. And I see lots of people in the chat. Hi, Jessica and Cookielicious, Annika, Leandra, Sugar Kiss. What's up? Seems lots of people also haven't like fully read it. So yeah, it'll be exciting to do it together. Yes, so the thing with Morazushi chapters is there are not a lot of them. So some of them are really, really long. So we'll probably just have to do some breaks in between at moments that maybe feel like it would make sense to break. The first chapter is only a couple pages long. So we'll actually begin probably, we'll get into chapter 2 a bit as well. And then we shall see how far we get. Yeah. Esper Lady says, I started reading and then heard you were reading, so I stopped and waited for you. Oh my god, that's amazing. We can do this together. Kate says, maybe Kictor live reading will make me like it more. Ooh, let's hope. I think getting to read Scumvillain with everybody made it like the maximum enjoyment possible for me. I think it was so much fun. I think this is also really good because if there's ever a moment where you're confused, we've got the chat, and the chat can help with questions, and it'll be really a fun, safe space, especially if you think it's like a dumb question or something that like you should know by now. Like, the chat will easily be there to help you, you know? Pei Ming's #1 Glazer, what's up? Thank you for being a member for 2 months. Hi, Kictor, how have you been? I've been really good, thank you. I finally finished book 1 of Bab, and God Whiplash. Bab is a case file compendium in English, and yeah, book 1 is nuts. Book 2, even more nuts. Hey, Mayan, how's it going, Mayan? And Banue, oh my goodness, Banue, thank you so much for joining my membership. Jessica says, such as, who is that, when they use a character's 4th name? Yeah, definitely, like, don't be afraid to ask questions, because everybody in this community, in the chat and stuff like that, are so nice. Nobody will make you feel dumb for asking a question. Hey, Kenzie, how's it going? Kenzie says, hello, my fave series. Wee, can't wait to listen and hear about my Shayla. I have exciting news to share with Briarbox at the member stream. Oh, that's exciting. Oh my goodness, I'm glad we'll get to hear it as well. Thank you so much for donating too, Kenzie. I hope you've been doing good. I know for a while you were kind of having a couple stressful days here and there, so I hope you've been able to chill and have some good luck. Just Me says, maybe with Kictor reading, I'll actually understand the book this time. Instead of getting so confused, I eventually gave up and just looked at fan art. This is the reading. This is the reading where we're all gonna lock in, we're all gonna understand, okay? I remember when I first read TGCF, that was my first time ever reading anything historical. It was my first time ever reading danmei. It was my first time, honestly, reading a novel in a really long time. And there were bits where I was a little bit confused, and I just persevered, you know? And I'm so glad I did, because I know early on if I decided to give up, I would have missed out on so much. So we're gonna make sure that today we're good. Quinn, thank you for your donation. Quinn says, spoiler alert, Wuxian dies. That's a crazy spoiler, how could you? And Orion, thank you so much for your donation. Burning some money for Wei Wuxian here. He can buy an afterlife candy bar or something. Oh my gosh. Yes, thank you so much for donating and for your Joss paper to Wei Wuxian. Guang Hui has been a member for 5 months. Thank you so much. Yay, 5 months! I watched K-pop Demon Hunters yesterday, and I watched it again today. I love it, and I'm making another edit of it. Also, best 5 months. Oh, I'm so glad you've enjoyed being a member. I've really enjoyed having you here. You're such a kind person. And yeah, K-pop Demon Hunters was awesome. We have been listening to the music, like, non-stop. I love, like, there's a genuine, like, there's a really good, like, cute song, really good badass song, really good, like, in-your-feels song. Like, they hit every angle. Every angle you have been hit. Kate says, do you want to see baby chibi Xi Qingxuan? Yes. Yes, I do. I want to see that more than anything. Leandra says, I have questions about the short film Live. The live chat replay wasn't available and the film didn't show as you were watching it. The first time I watched it, I honestly just fucked up on the stream. So then I fixed my stream and then we did it again. However, I got a copyright claim after the live. But it is on YouTube. And I think if you just search TGCF short film live, Emma's channel should come up and she has it subtitled. How did I find out about Scumvillain? I think just being in the Heaven Official's Blessing fandom, it's like no matter what, you can't not hear about Scumvillain and Morazushi. Mayan, thank you so much for your donation for a non-alcoholic drink to celebrate the one and only Lanjan. I don't know how Lanjan would feel about Coke Zero, but thank you so much, Mayan. Oh my goodness. Mayan, how is Rocket? Sami Flynn, thank you for your donation. I'm about to finish TDCF. I'm not ready. Help. You can do it. The ending is fantastic. Foxy says, did Wei Wuxian actually die? Oh, brother. Oh, brother. I'm sorry to show you this, but this is the first sentence of the book. Rejoice, Kictor is live, and Wei Wuxian is dead. Rejoice, Wei Wuxian is live. That's kind of funny. Yes, it does remind me of Wicked, totally. Kate says, I sent Xi Qingxuan and a few others I finished. Oh, fantastic. Let's see. And Mayan says, Rocket is very well, on a diet for being a little too chubs. Honestly, Lex is on a diet as well. Hope Link and Lexi are well too. Yes, they're good. They are so good. Lex, it's so easy for a Shiva to be chubs because they are so cute and you never want to not feed them. Oh my god. Kate. Okay, this is not... Kate, once you open your merch store, we're all fucked. Look at this. Oh my god. That is so cute. Don't worry, there's also Chi-Rong and Guzi. And Mo-Shi? From Yuwu? Dude. Oh my god. I would love to use these, like, on the stream as, like, emotes. Oh my goodness, Kate. You're amazing. Princess Moshi, yes! Emmy. Oh my goodness, Emmy, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. Thank you so much, Emmy. That is so kind of you. I really appreciate that. And Miss I is thanking you for the membership. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you, Emmy. That's so nice. Mia Elizabeth, thank you for your donation. Hi, it's my first time in the stream because of the different times in my country, but I have to come today. Modaozushu was my first danmei novel, so it's a special place in my heart. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, Wuxian is so good. Wuxian hits different. It's one of those when I feel like you're really in it, when you're in their heads and you feel their connection. It's just so good. So I'm excited to experience it again with you guys. And experience it on the deeper level and like actually be fully focused in the book, you know? Since Wei Wuxian has died, that means Lanjan sad. Indeed. Indeed. Misai says, cooking breakfast with Kictor on the speaker in the background. Good morning to everyone. Oh, good morning! Kenzie says, low-key sobbed. Oh, yeah. I'm trying to remember if there was a moment I cried in Scum Villain. I almost did. But it might have been just from, like, it being really touching and sweet. Lanjan is not rejoicing. Oh my god, Lady Demonic says, my dog is named Emmy, so she perked up when you said her name. That's so cute. Oatmeal says, will you do TGCF next? I will. I will. I think it'll be nuts. You kind of cried at the 7-9 chapter. Yeah! That was so good. That was really good. Always sobbing to danmei. Cup Noodle Cat, thank you so much for your donation. Modaozushu is my favorite. Love confession in all of fiction, danmei or not. The confession scene is absolutely iconic. Abby has been a member for a whole year, a Supreme member too. Thank you so much, Abby. Oh my god. 12 months, best year of my life. Oh, thank you so much, Abby. That's so sweet of you to say. I'm so glad you enjoyed it here. I've been religiously checking to see when the Legend of Exorcism sample is out so I can send it to you. Oh my god. I feel so blessed getting your early samples. The case file ones were nuts. Oh my god. Thank you so much. Mayan is the #1 fan right now with the most XP. Congrats. Briarbox says, hello and goodbye. I'm beyond exhausted since I won't have more than 1 day off this week, but I'll be at the member stream tomorrow and back to bed. Oh my goodness, good night, Briarbox. I hope you can rest. Kate says, I'm invested in Case File. I may or may not be drawing some right now. What are you drawing? Please tell me. Oh my goodness, I knew it would get you. I knew it would get you. Also, I'm editing another TikTok reaction video right now, and Spark Major, actually, I came across one of their TikToks that was Case File. Hey, oh my god, I summoned Spark Major. Holy crap. Literally the moment I said your name, your name popped up in the chat. Can you post a danmei ranking video? Yeah, we definitely should with Stitch because she's read so many. And we need to redo the MXTX top and bottom video now that I know of the Scum Maryland characters. Kate, definitely not Shay Ching Chung being submissive and breedable during the club scene. That would be crazy. Oh my god, oh my god. Redoing it on a live. That's actually a good idea. We should do that. That's a better idea. Cork has been a member for 7 months and says, 7 months! I finally got a wig for Sui Buchu and it's all styled and ready for my cosplay. Only sad thing is bookstore didn't have volume 4 Peerless. No! Oh, hopefully soon. That's awesome though that you're doing Sui Buchu. That's sick. I love seeing the peerless representation. The smaller danmeis getting noticed is really cool. Also, something else cool, Seven Seas actually reached out to me. It was really cool because a long time ago, they sent me a couple advanced readers copies for like when Arha first came out and stuff, and then they messaged me again asking if they could send me some more books, and I was like, yes, please, anything. Mayan says, I'm so happy people are still discovering Wuxian. Modazushi is rather passé in Asia and overtaken newer work, but I can't stay for this. Starting work soon. To you and Stitch. Oh, love hearts to you and Stitch. Bye, everyone. Bye, Mayan. Wuxian will never die in this household, Mayan. Wuxian will always be front and center. And we love you too. Banue says, you should do more readings. I like listening to your thoughts and jokes while listening. Oh, that's so sweet. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoy hearing my thoughts, because this definitely isn't like a reading, you know. It's a reading, hang out with the chat, joke around thing. Gabby Fest. Yes, we have the Legend of Exorcism Volume 2 Danmei Book Club coming, and the Dinghai Fusheng Records one, and the Case File one, and the Run Wild one. Lots of Danmei Book Clubs on the way. And then, oh my god, Arha comes out next week. Oh, god! Connor, thank you so much for your donation, Connor! Love Modazushi so much. While reading TGCF, my first danmei, your videos helped me get into the fandom as a whole. I got my roomie into it as well. Oh my god, that's wonderful. That's awesome, being able to geek out about it with your roomie. Spark Major says, I'm not ready for the book clubs. I've been on a side quest. What is the side quest? Abby, yes, send me those pictures. We haven't read Joyful Reunion 1 yet either. Wizard of Moss says, I've also been doing side quests. What is the side quest? Oh, reading other books. Hell yeah. I want to read all those books, man. Okay, Abby, I will check those pictures afterwards because I'm going to show them to Stitch. But thank you so much. All right. Shall we jump right in? Could somebody leave a comment on the video saying that the reading begins at 5:20? Jewel says, surprised you haven't read Modazushi yet. Thank you for being a member for 8 months, Jewel. I have read it, but it took me a really long time to read it, and I was kind of in between a couple different things, so I feel like I hadn't really soaked into it all the way. So I'm excited to do that now. KB, thank you for joining my membership. And Neko Me, thank you for your donation. Everyone excited we're getting more of their series released while I'm over here waiting until December for the first release of the one I want. Gotta hold myself over with ordering TGCF hardcovers. Oh yeah. Yeah, what is the one in December that you're waiting for? Also, just quick promo of my new merch shop that we got a pin at the top there. And if you buy something, it should automatically pop up on the screen, and then I can thank you personally with a shout out. And I really appreciate everybody who's bought the shirts and the mugs and the stickers. It really means a lot. Because we're in the Danmei Book Club right now. All right. Also, if you really want to get my attention during the stream, obviously I'm going to be checking the chat and stuff, but it's easier for me to see if you do write Kichter. Your message will appear like bright orange on my end, so just so you know. If you type out a message and write Kichter, I can see it. And feel free to interrupt me at any time. Okay. Chapter 1. Reincarnation. Rejoice! Wei Wuxian is dead! What? It hadn't been a day since the siege of the burial mound, and the news had already flown across the entire cultivation world as if it had sprouted wings. The speed was only comparable to how fast the flames of war had spread back then, if not faster. Suddenly, everyone, whether they were prominent clans or rogue cultivators, was discussing this operation of vanquishment that had been led by the 4 great clans and attended by hundreds of sects, both big and small. Fantastic, fantastic indeed! Who was the hero who killed the Yiling Patriarch? Who else could it be? Ain't it his shitty, the little sect leader Zheng Cheng? The 4 major clans fronted the attack: the Zheng clan of Yunmeng, the Jin clan of Lanling, the Lan clan of Gusu, and the Ni clan of Qinghe. Crushing family for the greater good, they destroyed Wei Wuxian's good old lair, the burial mound. I must say, well done. I remember, oh my god, I remember being like, Zheng Cheng killed him? Are you for real? Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Lady Demonic, thank you so much for joining my membership. Oh. Oatmeal says this is why I stopped reading. You didn't even make it down the first page. Someone immediately clapped and exclaimed in agreement. That's right, well done. If it wasn't for the Zheng clan of Yunmeng who took him and raised him, then Wei Wuxian would have been a no-name street rat in the countryside, never mind becoming anything else. The former Zheng sect leader raised him like his own son, eh? But look at him, publicly defecting from the clan, making himself an enemy of the world. He's embarrassed the Zheng clan of Yunmeng utterly and almost doomed them to the same fate of extermination. Why do you call him... What do you call a traitor? Him. A little bit rude. Esper lady, oh my god, thank you so much for buying the Danmei Book Club mug and one other item. Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, this Zheng Cheng guy, he can kill his brother, but he can't do a kickflip. I can't believe Zheng Cheng allowed that guy to run amok for so long. If it were me, I wouldn't have just stabbed him when he first defected. I would have cleaned house. He wouldn't have even gotten the chance to do all those crazy things. What does a childhood friendship matter when facing people like him? That's not what I heard, though. Didn't Wei Ying's demonic cultivation backfire, causing him to be ripped apart and devoured by the ghosts under his command? I heard he was chewed to pieces while still alive. And here's a little footnote. See, he was called Wei Wuxian, and now he's called Wei Ying. So, the footnote says, Wei Wuxian's birth name is Wei Ying. You can see the character guide for more information. Ha 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 ha, that's what you call karma. I've wanted to say this for a long time now, but those ghost generals he raised were like a pack of unleashed mad dogs, biting people everywhere, and in the end, he got bit to death himself. Well deserved. Be that as it may, if the little Zheng sect leader hadn't been the one to plan the siege based on the Yiling Patriarch's weaknesses, then success would have been difficult to guarantee. Don't forget what Wei Wuxian had in his clutches, or how over 3,000 renowned cultivators were all completely annihilated that night. Wasn't it 5,000? 3,000, 5,000, they're all the same. 5,000 is more believable. That's quite the discrepancy. He really is completely mad. He destroyed the Yin Tiger Tally before he died, so he gets at least some credit for that. If that evil thing was left to cause harm in the world, his sins would only deepen. The moment the Yin Tiger Tally was mentioned, there was suddenly silence, as if everyone was wary of something. A moment later, someone sighed. Man, speaking of that Wei Wuxian, he used to be a young master in an extremely affluent and distinguished cultivation sect back then. It wasn't like he had no accomplishments. He gained great success in his youth. How glorious and unbridled he was. How did he end up on this path? The subject changed, and voices were raised again in heated discussion. It's obvious from this case that the path of cultivation must always follow the righteous way. The demonic path is only glorious for the moment. You think it looks so glamorous? Huh, look where that got him. Death without a corpse, a voice replied forcefully. Hey. Never a good sign. It's not all because of the cultivation path. At the end of the day, it's still because Wei Wuxian was someone of bad character. He roused the wrath of the heavens and the grudges of men. You know what they say, what goes around comes around. The heavens are watching. ... Wei Wuxian made his own clan with blackjack and hookers. Oh my god. After Wei Wuxian's death, judgment of his character was no longer refutable. The discussions were mostly the same, and any small voice of dissent was immediately squashed. However, gloom still firmly enveloped everyone's minds. Although the Yiling patriarch Wei Wuxian had died at the burial mound, the remnants of his soul couldn't be summoned. Perhaps his soul had also been ripped apart and devoured by the millions of ghosts, or perhaps it had escaped. The former would naturally be a joyous occasion for the entire world. However, the Yiling patriarch had the ability to topple the earth and move mountains and seas. At least, that was what the legend said. It would be no great task for him to resist soul summoning if he desired it. If his spirit returned in the future, if he took over a body and was reincarnated, then the cultivation world, the entire mortal world in fact, would be cursed to face even greater vengeance, sinking into an endless storm of darkness and blood. And so, when the 120 stone beasts required to seal a mountain were set down at the peak of the burial mound, every major clan began conducting frequent soul-summoning rituals. They also strictly monitored for case of possession, sought far and wide for abnormal occurrences, and heightened their security to the max. In the first year, all was peaceful. In the second year, all was peaceful. In the third year, all was peaceful. ... In the 13th year, all was still peaceful. Thus, more and more people finally came to believe that perhaps Wei Wuxian had not been that amazing after all. Maybe he really had perished. Even though he had once turned the world upside down, there had at last come a day when he was the one overturned. No one could be worshipped on the divine altar forever. Legends were merely legends. Chapter 2. The Intractable. Wei Wuxian had only just opened his eyes when someone kicked him. A voice thundered in his ears. Playing dead? See how this could be so confusing? For the your first time reading this? Oh my god, it's like, so he didn't die, but he did die, but he's reincarnated, but... You know what I mean? Ellery, thank you so much for being a member for 20 months. Woo, 20 months, almost 2 years. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Ellery, for all of your support. I hope you and your family are doing well, and I hope Hushwan is doing well in your heart, too. Surprise! I bet you thought you saw the last of me. He said, psych, yes. Okay. He almost coughed up blood from the kick. His head hit the ground, and with his face turned up, he thought hazily, "You've got nerve daring to kick me, the patriarch." Wei Wuxian had already lost count of the number of years it'd been since he last heard a live person speak, never mind such an awful caterwauling. He was dizzy, and the cracked voice of a young man was rattling between his ears. Think for a moment whose land you're living on, whose rice you're eating, and whose money you're spending. So what if I took a few things of yours? They should have been mine in the first place. Soon after, there was a clamoring noise of chests and cabinets alike being ransacked. It was a good moment before Wei Wuxian's eyes could focus. A dim ceiling came into view, as did an unfortunate-looking face with a greedy glare. That face was spraying spittle all over him. "And you dare go tattle on me? You think I'm actually afraid of you tattling? Do you actually think anyone in this house would take your side?" 2 large men, who looked like servants, came over. "Young master, everything's smashed." "So fast?" the quacking youth questioned. "There wasn't much stuff in this broken shack anyways," the servants replied. The quacking youth was extremely pleased. He turned to Wei Wuxian, pointing so hard at the man that he was practically jabbing his finger up his nose and into his brain. Go and tell on me, I dare you. Who are you playing dead for? As if anyone would actually give a crap about all this junk and waste paper. I've smashed everything. Let's see what else you've got to go tattle on me with. Think you're all that just because you went to a cultivation sect for a few years? Well, didn't you get kicked out like a stray dog anyway? Presently half dead, Wei Wuxian thought to himself, it's not pretend. I've actually been dead for many years. Who was this? Where was this? When had he ever done something like forcibly possess the body of another? Ah, see, he did get brought back. After having kicked the man, ransacked the house, and spent all his temper, the quacking youth strutted out the door along with his 2 servants, slamming the door behind him. He ordered in a loud voice, "Keep proper watch. Don't let him come out to embarrass people." The servants outside the door all heeded. Once the man had gone, silence settled both inside and outside of the house. Wei Wuxian wanted to sit up, but his limbs would not obey him, so he laid back down and flipped over. His head continued to spin as he looked at his strange surroundings and the mess on the floor. Next to him was a copper mirror that had been tossed onto the ground, and Wei Wuxian snatched it up. A dreadfully pale face appeared in the mirror. 2 large blots of red were smeared unevenly on each cheek, as if he were to stick out a long and vividly red tongue. He'd be the very picture of a hanged ghost. Wei Wuxian tossed the mirror aside, a little disgusted. He wiped his face and found his hand smeared with white powder. Fortunately, it wasn't that this body had been born strange, but rather the penchant of the previous owner, a full-grown man with a face heavily caked in makeup and sloppily applied at that. Wei Wuxian's like, and he's not even fucking good at makeup. Yeah, Shadow Dancer. Interesting note. He says that it had been years since he's heard a person's voice. So does that mean that he, like, was alive in this afterlife limbo or something? Like, does Wei Wuxian know what happens when you die? Spark Major says, I could have done this so much better. This shocked some energy back into Wei Wuxian, who was finally able to sit up. Only then did he notice the circle of a spell array beneath him. The array was scarlet and crooked, seemingly hand-drawn using blood as the medium. It was still damp, emitting a metallic stench. There were warped and crazed spells drawn within the array that had been somewhat smudged by his body, but the remaining shapes and characters were gruesome in their evil intent. Wei Wuxian had been called by titles such as the Supreme Evil Lord, the Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, and whatnot for years, so naturally he was very familiar with obviously devious arrays such as these. That's the title of the book! It wasn't that he had robbed anyone of their body, he had been offered one! The nature of this sacrificial ritual was a type of curse. The caster was to harm themselves with a weapon, making cuts on their body and using their own blood to draw the array and write the spells within. They would then sit in the center of the circle and give up their mortal body to evil spirits, using the annihilation of their soul as the price to summon a nefarious, malicious ghost. This was all done in order to request the fulfillment of a wish. Thus, it was the opposite of possession. That's funny. Oh, there's a picture! Very creepy room. While both were forbidden magics of ill repute, the difference was that the former was much less popular than the latter. After all, few wishes were so strongly desired as to make someone willingly sacrifice everything they had. This was why the technique had been nearly lost after centuries of disuse. The examples recorded in ancient books had only a handful of cases that were backed by reliable evidence, and every single one of them had been for revenge. Every malicious ghost summoned by the ritual had fulfilled the caster's wishes perfectly, in cruel and bloody ways. Wei Wuxian refused to accept this. Since when was he categorized as a nefarious, malicious ghost? While he'd had a fairly poor reputation and died in an extremely tragic death, he didn't haunt the living, for one, and he'd never sought vengeance, for two. He could swear there was not a single wandering ghost in this world who was more decent and honest than he. Miss Rosie, thank you so much for gifting a membership. I really appreciate that. I hope you're doing good, Kenzie. Not Kenzie. Oh my god, sorry. Miss Rosie? Sorry. But the tough thing was, the sacrificial ritual followed the will of the caster first and foremost, so it didn't matter how much he objected. He was already inside this body, which was a silent acknowledgement that both parties had formed a contract. He had to fulfill the wish of the caster, or the curse would rebound, destroying the possessor's primordial spirit and extinguishing it forever. Wei Wuxian yanked his sash loose and raised his arms to inspect them. Sure enough, both of his wrists had been slashed with a sharp tool, leaving them covered in crisscrossing lacerations. The bleeding had already stopped, but Wei Wuxian knew they were not normal injuries. If he didn't fulfill the caster's wish, then these wounds would be unable to heal, and they would worsen the longer this dragged on. If the deadline for fulfillment was missed, then he, who had accepted this vessel, would be ripped apart in both body and soul alike. He triple-checked that there was no mistake, and cried, "This is ridiculous!" mentally 10 times before finally rising to his feet with difficulty, supporting himself against the wall. This house certainly was big, but it was empty and shabby. The bedding was emitting a sour smell. Who knew how many days had gone by since it was last changed? There was a bamboo basket for trash in the corner that had been kicked over earlier, and both trash and waste paper were strewn across the floor. Wei Wuxian noticed there seemed to be ink marks on the crumpled papers, so he picked one up in passing. He opened it to take a look, and sure enough, it was covered in words. He quickly went around to collect all the balls of paper. These were probably written by the owner of this body to vent his frustrations. Some of the sentences were incoherent and disordered, but the anxiety and nervousness were abundantly clear. Wei Wuxian patiently examined each sheet, and the more he looked, the more he felt something was amiss. Through some guesswork, he figured out a few things. First, the owner of this body was named Mo Xuanyu, and this place was called the Mo Estate. Mo Xuanyu's grandfather on his mother's side... Okay, everybody take a moment to picture this. Your mom's dad. Mo Xuanyu's grandfather on his mother's side was from a rich family in the area. The family wasn't large, and the man was not fated for a son. After years of trying, he still only had 2 daughters. The name of the second daughter wasn't mentioned, but either way, the eldest daughter was born of the lawful wife. Thus, they were looking for a husband to marry into their family name. Although the second daughter was exceptional in appearance, she was born of a servant, which was why the Mo family had originally planned to marry her out without giving much thought to the groom. Who would have thought she was fated for a fortuitous encounter? When she was 16, the head of a prominent clan was passing by and fell in love with her at first sight. The two made the Mo Manor the site of their rendezvous, and a year later, the second daughter gave birth to a son. This was Mo Xuanyu. Okay, are you following? Okay, so Mo Xuanyu's mom fucked a guy. Like, I know who it is, but the guy who was the head of a prominent clan. So she was kind of worth nothing. The head of a prominent clan passing by. They fucked. And then she gave birth to Mo Xuanyu. It's okay. It's not confusing. It's not confusing. We got this. The way that it's explained is like the grandfather on his mother's side. Basically, Mo Xuanyu's mom was not really worth anything. And so she wasn't married off to like a rich guy or anything. She just ended up having sex with a guy who was passing by that was from a rich clan. He fell in love with her at first sight. The two made the Mo Manor the site of their rendezvous, and a year later, the second daughter gave birth to a son. This was Mo Xuanyu. The inhabitants of the Mo estate would normally have held such an event in contempt, but people at the time worshipped cultivators. In the eyes of the mundane folk, cultivation clans that pursued immortality were loved by the heavens, mysterious and noble. Furthermore, that prominent clan leader would financially support this new outer family branch of his every so often. So naturally, these circumstances were special. Not only did the Mo family consider this an honor, but others were extremely envious too. However, the good days did not last. That wandering clan leader was only hungry for the novelty of fresh meat, and he was over it after 2 years, coming to visit less and less frequently. After Mo Xuanyu turned 4, the man never appeared again. Okay, so Mo Xuanyu's mom had a fling with a cultivator, and he treated them well for a while, but then once the novelty wore off, he was not a good dad. So, he's gone. In those passing years, the Mo estate's opinion changed again. The contempt and mockery returned, now with added disdain and pity. Second Lady Mo refused to accept this, believing firmly that the prominent clan leader would not turn a blind eye to his own son. And sure enough, when Mo Xuanyu turned 14, that clan leader sent over a grand party to officially take him back. Second Lady Mo's head was held high again. Although she could not go with them, this event swept away all the grievances she had. Feeling proud and elevated, she proclaimed proudly to everyone she saw that her son would definitely become a leader of cultivation sects in the future, rise to the top and bring glory across the ancestors. Thus the people of the Mo estate changed their opinion for the 3rd time. However, Mo Xuanyu was driven out before he managed to cultivate a claim and succeed his father. Also, okay, right off the bat, this is like, we're like so early in on the story. Notice how it's like people's opinions are so fickle, and like things that shouldn't determine someone's worth, it's like how society judges people. Like MXTX is already planting this seed. Like this is like a large theme of the book. We're already getting it in this little story right here. Like their opinions just change back and forth. Yeah. Okay, so Mo Xuanyu was driven out before he managed to cultivate a claim and succeed his father, and driven out in the most shameful way. Here's the thing. Mo Xuanyu was a cut sleeve. A male homosexual, and he was so audacious as to harass his fellow peers. It's like a cut sleeve. Okay, a male homosexual. Okay, he harassed people. With this scandal exposed and the fact that he possessed only average talent and no real achievements in cultivation, the sect had no reason to keep him. Adding frost to snow, something had upset Mo Xuanyu. When he returned home, he was as a madman. His mental state had been upended, as if he had been scared silly. Having read to this point, Wei Wuxian's brow twitched a couple times. The cut-sleeve matter aside, the man was a lunatic, too. No wonder he had smeared enough powder on his face to look like a hanged ghost. No wonder no one thought it strange that there was such a large, bloody spell array on the ground. Mo Xuanyu could probably smear blood all over this house, from the floor tiles up to the walls to the ceiling, and no one would think it weird, because everyone knew he was crazy. Yeah, what happened? What made him freak out? Adding frost to snow, something had upset Mo Xuanyu. When he returned home, it was as a madman. His mental state had been upended, as if he had been scared silly. I don't remember. Are we told why? Does he see something Jing Guanyao does or something like that? Yeah, he harassed Jing Guanyao, right? So maybe Jing Guanyao did something to him, right? Okay, something happened that made him get fucking mind broken, which is pretty crazy. Unless he didn't harass Jing Guanyao, and Jing Guanyao made that up, because maybe he saw something he wasn't supposed to see. Interesting. I don't remember. Ooh, it's so good. I love a book full of liars. Okay. After Mo Shan-yu returned to his old home, he was bombarded with ridicule. This time it seemed the situation was unsalvageable. Unable to take this blow, Second Lady Mo was choked to death by her own unappeasable outrage. At this time, what? How do you choke on your own outrage? Just, Does he know about Jing Guanyao and his wife? Right. Oh my god, I'm remembering now. So good. So good. Oh, crazy. Okay. We're good. So good. He knew what a little freak Jiggy was. Okay. At this time, Mo Shan-yu's grandfather had already passed, and the one managing the household was First Lady Mo. This Madame Mo had never been able to stand her little sister, and she scorned that sister's bastard son. She had a single son herself by the name of Mo Ziyuan, the one who had just ransacked Mo Shan-yu's house. When Mo Shan-yu first left with such impressive fanfare, First Lady Mo had felt they now possessed something of a family tie. The prominent cultivator... When Mo Shan-yu first left with such impressive fanfare, First Lady Mo had felt they now possessed something of a family tie to that prominent cultivation sect, and had hoped the cultivator and envoys would bring Mo Ziyuan along with them too. Of course, she had been rejected, or rather, ignored. Duh, this wasn't like selling cabbage in the markets, buy one, get one free. Who knew where this family got its confidence? But they all possessed a bizarre idea. They firmly believed that Mo Ziyuan had potential, that he had talent, and that if he were the one who had gone with the cultivators, then he would have been recognized for his worth for sure, unlike his failure of a cousin. Although Mo Ziyuan had been young when Mo Shan-yu left, he had been repeatedly indoctrinated to believe this nonsense without a single doubt. Thus, he caught Mo Shan-yu every other day to humiliate him, cursing him for having robbed him of his path to cultivation. Yet he remained enamored with the talismans, the pills, and the little spiritual devices that had been brought back from the cultivation sect, and would take them all for himself, breaking them as he willed. While Mo Shan-yu was often in the throes of madness, he knew when he was being humiliated. He tried his best to endure it time and time again, but Mo Ziyuan's behavior only worsened, practically emptying the entire house. At last, Mo Shan-yu had enough. He finally stammered a complaint to his uncle and aunt, which was why Mo Ziyuan had come knocking today, looking for trouble. The words on the paper were tiny and cramped. Wei Wuxian's eyes were sore from reading all this, and he thought to himself, what kind of hellish life was he fucking living? No wonder Mo Shan-yu had preferred to end it, offering his body to summon malicious ghosts to avenge himself. CSZL, thank you for your donation. In honor of chat pointing out that choking on his own unappeasable rage is exactly how Shen Yuan died. Yes, you're right. That is so funny. That's fantastic. After his eyeballs started feeling better, it became his head's turn to ache. Technically, the caster of the array had to mentally recite their wish, as the evil spirits summoned. Wei Wuxian should have been able to hear the details of his request. However, this forbidden magic had probably been secretly copied off a book with missing pages. It was incomplete, and Mo Shan-yu had missed that step. Although Wei Wuxian could guess that he most likely sought vengeance against the Mo family, how exactly did he want it done? To what extent? Take back what was taken? Beat up the family? or wipe them out entirely. It was most likely wiping out the family, eh? After all, anyone who had been in the cultivation world would know the words most often used to describe Wei Wuxian: treacherous and mad. Was there anyone better to fit the description of fiendish? Since the man had dared to summon him by name, his wish was definitely not something easily granted. Wei Wuxian said helplessly, "But you've got the wrong person." At first, he wanted to wash his face and gaze with reverence upon the dead countenance that had once belonged to its former owner. However, there was no water inside this house, not even drinking water. What's more, Wei Wuxian figured the only container around was for lavatory purposes and not for washing up. He tried pushing the door, but it was barred from the outside, probably to prevent him from running amok. There was not a single thing that could allow him the slightest bit of joy in being reincarnated. He might as well meditate for a while and get used to the new body. An entire day passed this way. When he opened his eyes once more, there was sunlight seeping into the house through the cracks of the window. Although he could get up and walk, his head was still spinning, and it didn't appear to be getting better. Wei Wuxian was puzzled. This Motion Yu's cultivated spiritual power is so minuscule, it might be completely overlooked. There's no reason why I can't manipulate this body, so why is it so difficult to use? It wasn't until a strange noise sounded from his stomach that he realized that it had nothing to do with spiritual power. It was simply that this body, not trained for fasting, was hungry. If he delayed seeking food any longer, he might just become the first malicious ghost in history to die of hunger immediately after being summoned. Wei Wuxian took a deep breath and raised his foot. But just as he was about to kick the door open, there was suddenly the sound of footfalls on the other side, drawing near. Someone gave the door a kick, which was followed by an annoyed call. "Mealtime!" While those were the words, it didn't appear the door was going to open at all. Wei Wuxian looked down just in time to see a small bowl be heavily set down before a small slat at the bottom of the door. The servant outside then added, "Hurry up! What's the hold-up? Put the bowl out when you're done." The slat was smaller than a dog flap, not large enough to allow people to go in and out, but bowls could be passed through. There were 2 dishes and 1 bowl of rice that looked awfully disgusting. Wei Wuxian bitterly stirred the chopsticks that were stabbed into the rice. The Yiling patriarch had returned to life, only to be kicked down and yelled at. The first meal to welcome him back was cold leftovers. Who would believe him if he told them? What happened to his bloody reign? His absolute massacres? His unadulterated annihilation of the sects? Truly, out of the mountains a tiger can be bullied by a dog. In shallow waters a dragon can be mocked by a shrimp. And a plucked phoenix is lower than a chicken. Stripped of their privileges, the strong will be belittled by the weak. Just then, the voice of the servant outside the door was heard once more, but this time it was a laugh that sounded as if it came from a completely different person. "Ah Ding, come over here." A delicate and frail feminine voice answered from a distance. "Ah Tong, did you come to deliver food for that person in there again?" Ah Tong clicked his tongue. "Why else would I come to this miserable courtyard?" Ah Ding's voice was at the door, much closer now. "You only make deliveries once a day, and no one scolds you even if you slack off every now and then, so why are you frowning at being so free? Look at me, so busy with errands that I can't even go out to play." Ah Tong complained. "It's not like delivering meals is the only thing I do, and you still dare to go out right now? There are so many walking corpses roaming about that every household has their doors firmly shut." Wei Wuxian was crouched down by the door, pushing around the contents of the bowl in his hand with 2 chopsticks of different lengths, listening as he ate. Seemed like things hadn't been peaceful here at the Mo estate. Walking corpses, as per the name, were the walking dead, reanimated corpses that were low level and commonplace. Zombies? You're telling me this is a zombie book? Their eyes were usually glazed, their movements sluggish. They were fairly harmless. Nonetheless, that was enough to terrify average folks, and their putrid smell alone was enough to make one fill a pot with puke. However, ew, I hated that. However, to Wei Wuxian, they were the easiest to manipulate and the most obedient of puppets. In fact, it even felt somewhat endearing to suddenly hear about them. Ah Tong appeared to have winked. "You have to take me along if you want to go out, so I can protect you." Ah Ding cut him off dismissively. "You protect me? Please, can you actually fight those creatures off?" "If I can't fight them off, then no one can," Ah Tong grumbled. Ah Ding laughed. "How do you know if the other people can't fight them off? Let me tell you, delegates from a cultivation sect have already arrived at our Mo Manor today. I hear they're from an incredibly prominent clan. The madman is receiving them in the main hall, the madame is receiving them in the main hall right this minute. Everyone in town is gathered to watch. They're all so curious. You hear that noise? They might order me around again in a bit. I don't have time to play with you. Wei Wuxian listened intently. Sure enough, there was a faint sound of commotion. After a moment's contemplation, he got up and kicked the bar, locking the door, which broke with a crack. The two servants, flirting with each other, screamed in surprise when the door was suddenly flung open. Wei Wuxian tossed the bowl and chopsticks aside as he stalked out, but the sunlight blinded him. The glare also caused a small pinching pain on his skin, so he raised his hand to his brows and closed his eyes for a moment. Atong had screamed louder than Ading a moment ago, but when he looked closer, he realized it was that lunatic everyone could bully. His courage returned. Feeling he must regain the dignity he just lost, he jumped over and waved, shooing Wei Wuxian like one would a dog. He yelled, "Get out of here! Shoo! Go back in! What are you doing outside?" Not even beggars or flies could have received more unsightly treatment. This was probably how these servants had treated Mo Shan Yu in the past, and they grew even ever more impertinent when he didn't retaliate. Wei Wuxian gave Atong a light kick, sending him tumbling, and laughed. "Who are you trying to humiliate, huh?" With that, he headed east, following the noise. Both the East Hall and the East Courtyard were crowded with people, and just as Wei Wuxian stepped into the yard, he heard a woman whose voice rose louder than the others. "We have a junior at home who also had an affinity for cultivation once." That must have been Madame Mo, who was trying to build connections with the cultivation clans again. Wei Wuxian didn't bother waiting for her to finish before he languidly squeezed through the crowd, entering the main hall. He waved enthusiastically, "Here, here, over here!" In the main seat of the hall sat a middle-aged woman, well-maintained and sumptuously dressed. This was Madame Mo. The one sitting below her was her husband, who had married into the family, and across from him were several white-clad youths with swords on their backs. Ah! When a disheveled, unkempt weirdo suddenly emerged from the crowd, conversation came to an abrupt stop. However, Wei Wuxian seemed to take no notice of the frozen atmosphere. He said unabashedly, "Who called me just now? The one with an affinity for cultivation. Isn't that me?" There was too much powder on his face, and it cracked when he smiled, flaking as it fluttered off. One of the white-clad youths snorted, almost laughing out loud, but he restrained himself when another youth, who appeared to be the leader of the bunch, shot him a disapproving look. "Don't make fun of the gay people." Wei Wuxian snuck a glimpse at them and was somewhat taken aback. At first he thought an incredibly prominent clan was but the exaggerated praise of an unlearned servant. But the people here really were cultivation disciples worth their name. Who would have thought? Graceful sleeved and light, airily sashed, these youths were exceptionally pleasing to the eyes, transcendent and poised. Judging by their uniforms alone, it was obvious they came from the Lan clan of Gusu. They were disciples with blood ties to the Lan family as well, since every single one of them had a 2-centimeter wide white ribbon patterned with rolling clouds tied around their foreheads. Elegance and righteousness was the motto of the Lan clan of Gusu, and this forehead ribbon symbolized self-restraint. The rolling clouds were the Lan family's insignia, and guest cultivators or sect disciples of outside families affiliated with the prominent clan were only allowed to wear ribbons without the pattern. Wei Wuxian always cringed every time he spotted someone from the Lan family. He'd often complained under his breath in his previous life that their uniforms looked like funeral clothes, so he knew he wasn't mistaken now. It had been a long time since Madame Mo had seen this nephew of hers, and it took a while before she was able to recover from her shock. After realizing who this heavily powdered person was, she was furious, but she couldn't lose her composure, so she hissed at her husband. "Who let him out? Get him out of here!" Her husband responded with an apologetic smile and got up with a glum look, ready to seize Wei Wuxian. All of a sudden, Wei Wuxian dropped down without warning and latched firmly onto the ground, immovable no matter how he was pulled or dragged. Not even the servants who were called in to help could do anything. If not for the outsiders who were present, they would have started to kick him already. Madame Mo's face was growing darker and darker, and his husband was drenched in sweat as well. He yelled, "You damn lunatic! If you don't go back right now, be careful or I'll put you in your place!" Although everyone from the Mo estate knew there was a young master in the Mo family who had gone mad, Mo Shan Yu had withdrawn into that gloomy house of his for many years, afraid to see anyone. Now that they saw how both his appearance and his actions resembled those of a raging monster, they started to whisper among themselves, excited to watch this spectacle unfold. Wei Wuxian spoke up. "I can go back if you want." He pointed at Mo Ziyuan, "but you have to make him return everything he stole from me first." Mo Ziyuan never thought this lunatic would have had the gall. He taught the guy a lesson just a day ago, only to have him turn around and expose him here today? His face changed colors as he exclaimed, "You're lying! Since when have I ever stolen anything of yours? Why would I need to steal any of your stuff?" Right, Wei Wuxian agreed. "You didn't steal, you snatched." Madame Mo could now tell that Mo Shenyu had obviously come prepared. His mind was perfectly clear, and he was bent on humiliating them. Shocked and livid, she accused him sharply. "You fully intended to wreak havoc here today, isn't that right?" Wei Wuxian looked confused. "He stole my stuff, snatched it from me even. Is asking for it all back considered wreaking havoc?" Mo Ziyuan grew agitated, raising his leg to kick Wei Wuxian before Madame Mo could answer. However, one of the sword-carrying, white-clad youths moved his finger slightly, and Mo Ziyuan immediately lost his balance. The kick brushed past Wei Wuxian, missing the mark, and the boy tripped over himself. However, Wei Wuxian still tumbled and rolled as if he really had been kicked. He even ripped open his robes, revealing on his chest the footprint left behind by Mo Ziyuan kicks the day before. The villagers of the Mo estate were enjoying the show immensely. Excitement filled the crowd. There was no way Mo Xuanyu could have kicked himself to create that footprint, and no matter what, he was still a member of the Mo family. What a vicious household! The boy hadn't been this crazy when he first returned, so it was probably the family's doing. Either way, it wasn't like they were the ones being beaten, so as long as there was a show to watch, all the better. The spectacle was truly more interesting than the arrival of the cultivators. With so many eyes watching, the youth couldn't be beaten, and he couldn't be kicked out. Madame Mo had no choice but to forcibly smooth the whole debacle over with fury thick in her throat. She said impassively, "What steal? What snatch? Such ugly accusations. We are family. It's nothing but borrowing. Ayuan is your younger brother, so what if he takes a few things of yours? As an elder brother, will you be this stingy, throwing a childish tantrum and embarrassing everyone over such a small matter? It's not like he wasn't going to return your things." There is a footnote that says cousins are still referred to as brothers or sisters in familial address. So, yeah, he is his cousin. The white-clad youths stared at each other in dismay, and one of them almost choked on his tea. The disciples who grew up with the Lan clan of Gusu were raised in refined elegance, so they had probably never encountered such a farce, nor heard such brilliance. Today's events were probably widening their horizons. Wei Wuxian laughed maniacally in his mind and extended his hand. "Give them back, then." Of course, Mo Ziyuan couldn't return anything. All the items were long since tossed out or torn apart, and even if he could have returned them, he wouldn't have done so willingly. Red in the face, he cried out in protest. "Mom!" He scowled at her. "Are you going to let him insult me like this?" Madame Mo glowered at him, signaling him not to make this scene any worse than it was. Unexpectedly, Wei Wuxian spoke up again. "While we're on the topic, not only should he not have stolen my stuff, he shouldn't have done so in the middle of the night. Everyone knows I like men. Even if he has no shame, I know not to make myself suspicious." Oh my god. Madame Mo drew in a sharp breath and yelled, "What are you spewing in front of the village folks? How shameless! Ayuan is your little cousin!" When it came to outrageous behavior, Wei Wuxian was an expert. In the past, he'd had to maintain some form of decorum so people couldn't accuse him of having a poor upbringing. But now, he was a lunatic anyway, so what did he care for shame? He could go wild and cut loose to his heart's content. He stiffened his neck and said outright, "He knew he was my little cousin, but he still didn't observe propriety and keep his distance, so who is the more shameless one here? I don't care if you don't care about your reputation, but I still care about mine. I still gotta find a good man!" Oh my god. Mo Ziyuan roared, raising a chair to hurl it Wei Wuxian's way. Seeing that he'd finally snapped, Wei Wuxian quickly scrambled up to go hide. That chair broke into pieces upon impact with the ground. The spectators crowding in and out of the East Hall were waiting with an unconcealed delight to watch the Mo family be disgraced, but they all quickly dispersed once things got violent, afraid they might be injured. Wei Wuxian ducked toward the youths from the Lan family, who were completely dumbfounded by what was unfolding, crying as he did so. You see? He's hitting me even though he stole my stuff! How heartless!" Mo Ziyuan chased him over, ready to lunge, but the leader of the youth stopped him. "This, Gongzi, we can talk this out." Seeing the... and Gongzi is like... young master. That's not another name. That's like a title. Seeing the youth intended to protect the lunatic, Madame Mo grew apprehensive. She forced a smile. This young man is my younger sister's son. He's a little unstable here. Everyone at the Mo estate knows he's crazy. He's always saying strange things, so don't take him seriously. Esteemed cultivators, you mustn't... Before she could finish, Wei Wuxian poked his head out from behind the youth. Who said I can't be taken seriously? From now on, if anyone tries to steal my stuff, I'm gonna chop off an arm for every time they do. Just try me! Mo Zhuyan was being held back by his father at first, but when he heard this, his anger flared up again. Wei Wuxian darted out the door like a fish, taunting him with a la 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 as he went. The youth quickly blocked the door right after and changed the topic, assuming a serious face to talk business. Then we will be borrowing your esteemed west courtyard for tonight. Please remember exactly what I said earlier. Lock all the doors and shut all windows tight after dusk. Do not come out for any activities, especially not near the west courtyard. Madame Mo was shaking with rage, but it wouldn't have been courteous to push the youth aside despite him blocking her, so she could only reply, Yes, thank you. Mo Zhuyan was in a state of disbelief. Mom, are you gonna let that lunatic get away with slandering me in public? Didn't you say yourself that he was only a mere... Shut your mouth! Madame Mo cut him off sharply. Can you not wait until we're back inside? Mo Zhuyan had never suffered such a wrong before, nor had he ever been humiliated this way. He had especially never been scolded by his mother like this. He cried furiously, That lunatic is dead! After Wei Wuxian was done letting loose, he went out the main entrance of the manor and strolled around the Mo estate to show his face, scaring numerous passerbys and enjoying himself while he was at it. He began to understand the joy of being a madman, and was even starting to be pleased with the hanged ghost makeup, not wanting to wash it off. It's not like there's water around anyway, so I'll let it be. He fixed his hair and glanced at his wrist. There was no indication the cuts were fading or healing at all, which meant the trifling revenge of venting anger on Mo Shanyu's behalf was far from enough. Did he really have to slaughter the entire Mo family? To be honest, that wouldn't have been anything difficult to do. Wei Wuxian pondered this as he sauntered back to the Mo Manor. As he snuck past the west courtyard with small, quick steps, he noticed the land disciples on top of the rooftop and wall eaves gathered in somber discussion. He snuck back again with those small, quick steps and looked up, watching them intently. While the Land Clan of Gusu was a major part of the coalition that had come to besiege him in the past, those juniors hadn't yet been born at the time, or if they had, they would have been only a few years old. So that event had nothing to do with them. Wei Wuxian stood there and observed, wanting to see how they planned on handling the situation. As he looked on, he suddenly felt something amiss. Why did those black flags being flown on the rooftops and wall eaves look so familiar? The flag was called a spirit attraction flag. It was stuck on a living person, then it would attract every dark spirit, every vengeful ghost, every fierce corpse, and all such manner of evil to attack said person. Since wearing a flag was akin to becoming a live target, the flag was also called a target flag. It could also be stuck on buildings, but said building had to have a living person within, and the range of the target would increase to include all people within the building. Since yin energy swirled around the area where these flags were planted like a black whirlwind, they were also known as black wind flags. Those youths were setting up the flag formation and had told others not to go near, so they had to intend to lure the walking corpses here to capture them all at once. As for why the flags looked familiar, how could they not? The creator of the spirit attraction flag was this very Yiling patriarch. It appeared that, despite how the cultivation world had demanded Wei Wuxian's demise, they nevertheless had no qualms about making use of his inventions. One of the disciples on the rooftop noticed him watching and chided him. Go back, this is not a place you should be. Though he was being ordered to shoo, it was done with good intentions, and the tone of voice employed was also greatly different from that of the Mo servants. While the youth was off his guard, Wei Wuxian hopped up and plucked a flag. Greatly alarmed, that disciple jumped down the wall to chase after him. Don't touch that, it's not for you! Wei Wuxian hollered as he ran, looking completely like a lunatic, his hair flying loose and disheveled, arms waving and legs skipping. Finders keepers, I want this! Mine! That disciple quickly caught up with him and grabbed his arm. "Give it back, or else I'll hit you!" Wei Wuxian clutched the flag tightly, refusing to let go. The leader of the group that was setting up the flag formation was alerted by the commotion and also came fluttering down from the eaves. "Jingyi, let it go! Retrieve the flag nicely. There's no need to start a dispute." "Sizhui, I didn't hit him for real," Lan Jingyi complained. "Look at him, he's messed up the flag formation." During their push and pull, Wei Wuxian had swiftly finished inspecting the spirit attraction flag. The drawn patterns were correct, and none of the spells were missing either. There were no mistakes, so no mishaps would occur if the flags were used. The only issue was that the person who'd drawn the flag was not very experienced, so the spell could only attract any evil and walking corpses within a 2.5 radius at most, but that would be enough. Lan Sizhui turned to him with a smile. "Mo Gongzi, it's getting late, and we will be starting to catch walking corpses here soon. It is dangerous at night. You best hurry back to your chambers." He's such a good boy. I love him so much. Oh my god. He's so sweet. Wei Wuxian sized up this youth. The boy was gentle in disposition, refined and elegant, noble in his bearing with a light grin curving the corners of his lips. This was a good sprout, very worthy of encouragement, and Wei Wuxian mentally gave him a nod of approval. The child had set up the flag formation in a proper and orderly manner, and his upbringing really was quite commendable as well. Wei Wuxian wondered who among that terrifying group full of uptight sticks in the mud known as the Lan Clan had managed to raise such a junior. Ah! Lan Sizhui added, "This flag..." Before he could finish, Wei Wuxian tossed the spirit attraction flag onto the ground and humphed. "What's so good about this crappy flag? I can draw better." He then took off right after. The juniors who were on the rooftop watching the show burst out laughing at his shameless declaration so righteously that they almost fell off the roof. Lan Jingyi also laughed in exasperation, then picked up the flag on the ground, dusting it off. "What a lunatic!" "Don't say that," Lan Sizhui chided him. "Let's go back and help now." Oh man, he knew in his heart. I mean, he's kind to just anybody, but it's so extra sweet. He really is the best boy. As for Wei Wuxian, he wandered idly about for a while. It wasn't until dark that he returned to Mo Shenyu's little courtyard. The door latch was snapped without anyone to clean up the mess. He ignored it and picked a somewhat clean spot in the room before sitting down and continuing to meditate. Yet unexpectedly, it hadn't reached the morning hours when a noisy commotion outside pulled him out of his meditative state. A clamor of footsteps mixed with wailing and screaming was rapidly approaching, and Wei Wuxian heard these cries repeated. "Break in and drag him out! Report him to the authorities! Who cares about the authorities? Just beat him to death!" He opened his eyes just as a number of servants charged in. The entire courtyard was lit up as bright as day, and someone was shouting, "Drag that murdering lunatic to the main hall and make him pay with his life!" Wei Wuxian's first thought was, did something go wrong with these youths' flag formation? The smallest carelessness in the usage of his inventions could cause disaster, which was why he had earlier purposely gone to verify whether the spirit attraction flag was properly drawn. Thus, when those large hands came to drag him out the door, Wei Wuxian lay there limply, allowing himself to be dragged out. It saved him the trouble anyway. He was dragged to the East Hall, where it was as lively as could be. Surprisingly, there were no fewer townspeople gathered there than had been during the day. Many of the servants and close family relations had come, some still dressed in inner robes, not having had time to coif their hair, panic painted on their faces. Lady Mo sat slumped in her seat as if she had only just awoken from having fainted. There were traces of tears on the sides of her cheeks, the rims of her eyes still wet. However, the moment Wei Wuxian was dragged in, her tears instantly transformed into a baleful glare. On the ground, there lay something that resembled the form of a human. The body was covered by a white sheet, and only its head was exposed. Lan Sizhui and those other youths were bent down over it, inspecting the body solemnly and whispering to each other. Their words flittered into Wei Wuxian's ears. "It hasn't been one incense time since he was discovered. Right after subduing the walking corpses, we were rushing to the east courtyard, and the dead body was lying there in the corridor. This body was Mo Ziyuan." "What?" Wei Wuxian swept a glance over him, then took another look in spite of himself. The corpse looked like Mo Ziyuan, but at the same time not. While the facial features were clearly that of his cheap little cousin, the cheeks were deeply The cheeks were deeply sunken, the eyeballs bulging, and the skin wrinkled. It was as if he had aged 20 years compared to the previous Mo Ziyuan, who had been in the prime of his youth. It also almost seemed as if he had been sucked dry of his blood and flesh. He looked like a mere sack of bones dressed in an extremely thin veil of skin. If it could have been said that this Mo Ziyuan from before was simply ugly, then this corpse was now old and ugly. Wei Wuxian was taking a detailed look when Madame Mo suddenly came charging over. Something shining flashed in her hand. She was holding a dagger. Moving as fast as the eyes saw, Lan Sizhui knocked it out of her hand. But before he could say anything, Madame Mo was already screaming at him. "My son died a tragic death! I need to avenge him! What are you stopping me for?" Wei Wuxian once again ducked behind Lan Sizhui and shot back. "What does your son's tragic death have to do with me?" Lan Sizhui had watched Wei Wuxian make a scene during the day, then later heard plenty of exaggerated rumors about this illegitimate son from the others. He felt great pity for this mentally ill person and couldn't help but try and speak up for the man. "Madame Mo, the state of your son's corpse is clearly the work of evil. Its blood, flesh, and spirit have been completely sucked out. He could not be the culprit." Madame Mo's chest heaved. "What do you know? This lunatic's father is a cultivator, so he must have learned plenty of evil magic." Lan Sizhui looked back and took a glance at the seemingly half-witted Wei Wuxian. "Madame, there is no evidence, so it is still best—" "The evidence is on my son's body!" Madame Mo pointed at the corpse on the ground. "Take a look yourselves. Ayuan's dead body has already told me who his murderer is." Without waiting for the others to make a move, Wei Wuxian raced to pull back the sheet from head to toe. Mo Ziyuan's corpse had something missing. His left arm, from the shoulder down, had vanished as if it had sprouted wings. Madame Mo added, "You see that? You all heard him today, right? What this lunatic said, that if Ayuan touched his things again, he would chop off Ayuan's arm." After her hysterics had settled, she covered her face and sobbed. "My poor Ayuan never touched anything of this lunatic's. Not only was he slandered, he was killed by this maniac. Maniac!" It was so endearing. How many years had it been since he'd heard himself described as such? Wei Wuxian pointed at himself, but he didn't have the words to rebuke that particular statement. He didn't know either whether he really was mental, or if Madame Mo was the one who was ill. After all, he had boasted about slaughtering entire sects, laying waste to millions, making blood flow like rivers, and other such things when he was younger. But that was all talk. Most of the time. If he really could do all that, he would have tyrannized the whole world already. Madame Mo wasn't trying to avenge her son at all. She was only looking for someone to vent her anger on. Wei Wuxian didn't want to bother with her. After a moment of thought, he reached into Mo Ziyuan's robes and searched, finally digging something out. When he unfolded that something, it was a spirit attraction flag. In that instant, it dawned on him. He muttered under his breath, "Mo Ziyuan brought this on himself." When Lan Sizhui and the others saw the item taken out of Mo Ziyuan's robes, they also understood what happened. Thinking back to the farce that had taken place during the day, it wasn't hard to deduce what had transpired. Earlier, Mo Ziyuan had lost considerable face due to Mo Shenyu's hysterics, filling him with hatred. He'd had a mind to settle scores, but Mo Shenyu had gone out frolicking, nowhere to be found. So Mo Ziyuan intended to wait until nighttime to teach Mo Shenyu an underhanded lesson. Yet when night came and he snuck out the door, as he passed by the west courtyard, he saw the spirit attraction flags planted atop the wall eaves. While there were strict instructions against outings at night, and that the west courtyard was forbidden, and that those black flags were not to be touched under any circumstance, Mo Ziyuan thought that was the cultivators purposely scaring people off because they were afraid of others stealing their precious spiritual weapons. He was unaware of just how dangerous and ominous the effects of the spirit attraction flag were, and that once held, a flag would make the bearer a living target. Mo Ziyuan's hands had never been clean. He'd grown addicted to stealing the talismans and spiritual tools belonging to his crazy older cousin. When he saw the magical objects, he couldn't help but feel the itch to take them for himself, no matter the cost. Thus, while the owners of the flags were subduing walking corpses in the west courtyard, he secretly plucked one away. The flag formation utilized 6 spirit attraction flags, 5 of which were set up in the west courtyard using those youths from the Lan family as bait. However, they themselves were protected by the countless spiritual tools carried on their persons. Although Mo Ziyuan had only stolen the 1 flag, he didn't have any protective tools on him. Go after the weakest, as they say. Naturally, the evil spirits were lured to him. If it had only been walking corpses, then it wouldn't have been a big deal. At most, he would have been bitten a couple times. It wouldn't have resulted in his death. There would have still been a chance to save him. Yet it just so happened that this spirit attraction flag had unintentionally summoned something more terrifying than walking corpses. And it was precisely this unknown evil spirit that had killed Mo Xuan and robbed him of an arm. The grave digging begins. Zombies aren't very hardcore here, eh? Yeah, they're not. Wei Wuxian raised his wrist. Sure enough, a cut on his left arm had healed. It seemed the sacrificial ritual had acknowledged Mo Xuan's life as his doing. Oh, sorry. Hit Mo Xuan's death as his doing. After all, the spirit attraction flag was Wei Wuxian's invention, so he'd hit the mark out of pure luck. Madame Mo was perfectly aware of her son's little flaws, but she would never admit Mo Xuan had caused his own death. Anxious and aggravated, she picked up a teacup and hurled it at Wei Wuxian's face. If you hadn't made a scene and framed him in front of so many people yesterday, would he have gone out of the middle of the night? It's all your fault, you bastard! Wei Wuxian was already prepared and sidestepped to dodge the attack. Madame Mo then screamed at Lan Sizhui. And you bunch of useless fools! What cultivators are you? What evil can you exercise? You can't even protect a child! Ah, Yuan is so young! Though the youths were still green and only had so much experience under their belt, they hadn't detected anything unusual in the area, which was why they'd never thought there'd be such a ferocious evil. At first, they'd been quite sorry because they felt themselves lacking, but after Madame Mo's indiscriminate tongue-lashing, they were growing upset. After all, they came from a distinguished clan. No one had ever dared treat them this way. The teachings of the Lan clan of Gusu were extremely strict. They forbade raising a hand against normal folk, and not even rudeness was allowed. Even though they were irritated, they had to force it down, causing dark expressions to cloud their faces. Wei Wuxian couldn't take it anymore. He thought, after so many years, the Land family still acts this way. What's the use of all that self-restraint unless you're looking to suffocate yourselves? Watch me. He spat loudly. Who do you think you're yelling at? Do you really take them to be your servants? They came all this way to exercise evil for free, and now they owe you? How old is your son again? At least 17, right? A child still? How old do you have to be to understand human words? Did they not instruct us again and again yesterday to not go near the west courtyard, not touch anything in the formation? Your son snuck out in the middle of the night to dally about. Is that my fault, or is it his fault? Mic drop. Wei Ying protecting the land ducklings, yes. Lan Jingyi and the others let out a breath, no longer looking as upset. Madame Mo was both extremely sad and resentful, and her mind was filled with nothing but thoughts of death. More specifically, it wasn't thoughts of herself dying to accompany her son, but rather thoughts of having everyone in the world die, especially the ones currently in front of her. Whenever something happened, she'd always ordered her husband around, so she shoved him. Call everyone in! Call everyone in! However, her husband was in a daze. Perhaps the shock of the death of his only son was too great, but he shoved her back, knocked her down to the ground so abruptly. Madame Mo was stunned. If this had been before, Madame Mo needn't have pushed him. As long as she raised her voice a tiny bit, he'd do whatever she said. Yet today, he dared fight back. The servants were all terrified by her expression, and a trembling adding helped her stand. Madame Mo grabbed her heart and said with a shaking voice, You get lost too! Mick Anime, thank you so much for gifting 10 memberships! Oh my goodness! Thank you so much! That's so kind of you! Thank you! Oh my god! 10 memberships for the poor land ducklings that were yelled at. That is really, really generous of you. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. And I love your name, McAnime. That's fantastic. Welcome to all the new members. Yeah, the member stream is going to be awesome. And the member stream is tomorrow. Her husband seemed not to have heard. Ading shot Atong a number of looks, and Atong quickly dragged his master out. It was chaos within the East Hall. Seeing how the family was finally quieting down, Wei Wuxian went to inspect the corpse further. However, he had barely glanced at it before another high-pitched scream pierced through the door. The crowd inside the hall poured out and were greeted with the sight of two bodies spasming on the ground in the east courtyard. One was a slumped Atong, alive. The other was collapsed on the ground, its body wrinkled and withered as if its blood and flesh had been completely sucked dry. Its left arm was already gone, and there was no blood flowing from the wound. The state of this corpse was exactly the same as Mo Ziyuan's. Madame Mo had just shaken off Ading's supporting hand, but when she saw that corpse lying on the ground, she was stunned in place. At last exhausted of the energy to throw more fits, she fainted. Wei Wuxian happened to be standing near her, so he caught her and passed her to Ading as she came running over. He then took a glance at his right hand. A cut there was gone as well. Madame Mo's husband had only stepped out into the threshold of the hall. He hadn't even entered the yard before he died tragically on the spot. Everything had happened within an instant. Lan Sizhui, Lan Jingyi, and the others paled, but Lan Sizhui was the first to compose himself. He questioned the slumped Atong. "Did you see what it was?" Atong was thoroughly horrified, his teeth clenched so hard that he couldn't utter a word for the moment, only shaking his head. Lan Sizhui, burning with impatience, instructed his peers to bring the boy inside before he turned to Lan Jingyi. "Did you fire the signal?" "I did," Lan Jingyi replied. "But if there are no seniors nearby who can come to offer assistance, our people will probably take at least an hour before they can make it here. What do? We don't even know what it is right now." It was, of course, impossible for them to leave. If the clan's disciples only cared about escape when running into evil spirits, then not only would they embarrass the clan, but they themselves would be too ashamed to go out again. The terrified folks of the Mo household could not leave with them either. The evil spirit was most likely among them, so it would have been useless even if they fled. Lan Sizhui clenched his teeth. "Stay on guard until help arrives." Since the distress signal was already fired, other cultivators would soon come to their aid. In order to avoid adding to the present trouble, by all accounts, Wei Wuxian should have retreated. Best if whoever came was no one he knew. If it was someone he had crossed paths with before, or had fought with, then it was hard to tell what would happen. "Oh, brother." "Dad, come help us!" With the sacrificial ritual's curse on him, he could not leave the Mo estate yet. Besides, if the summoned creature could take 2 lives with such a short span of time, then it was abnormally ferocious. If Wei Wuxian dropped everything and left, then by the time reinforcements arrived, the entire Mo estate would have its streets filled with corpses missing their left arms, and surely some of those corpses would include the familial disciples of the Lan clan of Gusu. After a moment's deliberation, Wei Wuxian said to himself, "Let's end this quickly." Those youths were fledglings, each of them looking nervous. Despite that, they still scrupulously took their places to protect the Mo Manor and stuck talismans inside and outside of the hall. The servant's Atong had already been carried inside, and Lan Sizhui checked his pulse with his left hand while his right massaged Madame Mo's back. He couldn't retreat both at once and was in a sorry dilemma when suddenly Atong crawled up from the ground. Ading exclaimed, "Atong, you're awake!" Before any delight could cross her face, Atong raised his left hand and seized his own neck. Seeing this, Lan Sizhui targeted several of Atong's acupoints with a triple tap of his hand apiece. Wei Wuxian knew that while the Lan clan appeared gentle on the surface, their arm strength was not gentle in the least. How do you know that? Using that method, anyone could be rendered thoroughly unable to move. However, Atong appeared not to have felt a thing. His left hand gripped harder and harder, his face scrunching more and more with pain. Lan Jingyi went over to pull at his left hand, but it was like trying to break off a chunk of iron, immovable. Moments later, crack. Atong's head drooped down, and only then did the hand let go. But his neck was already broken. He had actually strangled himself before the eyes of all. Seeing this, Ading's voice trembled. "A ghost! There's an invisible ghost here, and it made Atong strangle himself!" Her voice was shrill and sad, raising hairs on everyone's necks. They all believed her. Wei Wuxian determined it to be the exact opposite, however. This wasn't a malicious ghost. He had seen the talismans these youths had chosen, and they were the spirit-repelling type. They had plastered the entire East Hall with them, all right. Airtight. If this was really a malicious spirit, then those talismans would have immediately burned with green flames when it entered the East Hall. Things would not be as quiet as they were now. It wasn't that this group of youth was slow to react, it was that the intruder was truly ferocious in nature. The cultivation sects had strict criteria for determining whether something was a malicious ghost. One was considered such if it killed once a month for up to 3 months consecutively. This was a criterion Wei Wuxian himself had set, and it was probably still in use now. Dealing with this type was his specialty, and based on what he'd seen, killing one every 7 days would make this creature a malicious ghost that caused particularly frequent mischief. However, this thing had just killed 3 times in a row, and in a short time span too. Even accomplished cultivators would have been hard-pressed to come up with a counter-strategy, never mind these novice juniors. Just as he was thinking this, the firelight flashed. A blast of sinister wind whipped by, and every lantern and every candle in the entire courtyard, including the East Hall, was extinguished. Screams erupted the instant the lights went out. The men and women pushed and shoved, falling and fleeing. Lan Jingyi shouted, "Stay where you are! Don't run! We'll arrest whoever runs!" Those were not words spoken without reason. Wreaking havoc in the dark and taking advantage of confusion was the nature of evil spirits. The more the people screamed and ran amok, the easier it would be to attract trouble unknowingly. It was extremely dangerous to be left alone, or to lose one's head at a time like this. And yet it could not be helped that everyone was scared out of their wits, so how could they possibly pay attention to and heed any instructions? It didn't take long before the East Hall fell quiet, with only the sound of light breaths and faint sniffling. Most had probably left. In the darkness, a firelight suddenly flared. It was Lan Sidgui who had lit an illumination talisman. Sorry, my dogs are going crazy. The flames of the illumination talisman could not be extinguished by the sinister wind that carried evil, and he used this talisman to relight the candles anew while the rest of the youths went around to console the others. Under the light, Wei Wuxian took a nonchalant glance at his wrists. Another cut had healed. It was then he suddenly realized the number of cuts were wrong. There had been 2 cuts on his left wrist and 2 on his right. One cut healed after Mo Xuan's death, another cut healed after the death of Mo Xuan's father, and then a third after the death of the servant Atong. Tallying that up, there should have been 3 healed cuts, leaving only the cut with the deepest wound and the deepest hatred. But now there was nothing on his wrists. Not a single cut was left. Wei Wuxian trusted that Madame Mo was most definitely among those whom Mo Shanyu wished to seek revenge upon. The longest and deepest gash was likely for her, yet it had surprisingly vanished. Was it Mo Shanyu who had suddenly let it go and abandon his hatred? That was impossible. His soul had been sacrificed as the price for summoning Wei Wuxian. In order for that cut to heal, Madame Mo had to die. Unless... He slowly moved his gaze from his wrist to Madame Mo, who had recently roused and was surrounded by the crowd. Her face was white as a sheet. Unless she was already dead. Wei Wuxian was sure something had already possessed Madame Mo. If that thing was not a spirit, then what could it be? Suddenly, Ading cried, "Hand! Hand! Atong's left arm!" Lan Sidgui moved the illumination talisman over Atong's corpse. Sure enough, his left arm had also vanished. The left arm! In that flash of a second, everything was clear. The creature causing mischief and the vanishing left arms formed a connection that clicked in Wei Wuxian's mind. He suddenly snorted and burst out laughing. Lan Jingyi huffed. That dummy, how can he laugh at a time like this? But then he realized that, given the man was a dummy, what was the point of bothering him in the first place? However, Wei Wuxian grabbed Lan Jingyi's sleeve and shook his head. No, no! Lan Jingyi irritably tried to pull his sleeve back. No what? Not a dummy? Stop playing around. No one's got time for you. Wei Wuxian pointed at Father Mo and Atong's corpses on the ground. That's not them. Lan Sidgui stopped Lan Jingyi, who was about to blow up. He asked, "You said that's not them. What do you mean?" Wei Wuxian replied solemnly, "This isn't Mo Xuyan's dad, and that's not Atong either." With his face smeared in makeup, the more solemn he was, the more it felt like he really was mentally ill. However, under the haunting candlelight, his words were surprisingly hair-raising. Lan Sizhui was stunned for a moment, then questioned him in spite of himself. Why is that? Wei Wuxian said smugly. Because of the hand. They're not left-handed. They always beat me with their right hands. I know that much, at least. Lan Jingyi lost his patience and spat. What are you so smug for? Look at that pleased face. Lan Sizhui, however, had broken out in a cold sweat from the shock. Thinking back, Atong had strangled himself using his left hand, and when Madame Mo's husband pushed his wife down, he had also used his left hand. But during the day, when Mo Shenyu had been causing a ruckus in the East Hall, those two had been busy trying to chase him out as using their habitual right hands. Surely they couldn't both have turned into left-handers all of a sudden, right before their deaths. Although the cause was presently unknown, in order to investigate what was causing mischief, they had to start with those left arms. Having come to this conclusion, Lan Sizhui sent a bewildered look at Wei Wuxian. Despite himself, he thought, for him to suddenly say something like that really doesn't seem like a coincidence. Wei Wuxian only continued to laugh cheekily, knowing that the hint had been too conspicuous, but there was no other way. Thankfully, Lan Sizhui didn't dig into it, thinking, either way, since this Mo Gangzi was willing to call attention to it for me, it most likely wasn't done out of ill intent. He moved his gaze from Wei Wuxian, swept it over Ding, who had fainted from weeping, and landed his eyes on Madame Mo. His eyes traveled down from her face to her hands. Her arms were hanging by her sides, mostly hidden in the sleeves, revealing only the tips of her fingers. The fingers of her right hand were snow-white and slim, truly the hand of a woman who lived in privilege without the hardship of labor. However, the fingers of her left hand were longer and thicker than those of the right. The knuckles were curled, filled with strength. How was that the hand of a woman? It was clearly the hand of a man. Hold her down! Lan Sizhui shouted. The youths had already twisted Madame Mo's arm back in a hold. With a "Forgive me," Lan Sizhui pulled out a talisman. He was ready to slap it down when Madame Mo's left arm twisted at an impossible angle, aiming for his throat. Him saying "forgive me" before doing this is hilarious. The only way for a living human to twist their arm that way would be if their bones were broken. The hand's movement was fast, and it would have seized his neck had it not been for Lan Jingyi tackling Lan Sizhui with a loud "Gah!" and blocking the attack for him. Aww. I always kind of shipped them. There was a... Or, wait, is it them, or is it him and Jin Ling? I got all the juniors mixed up. There was a flash of firelight. That hand had only just grabbed Lan Jingyi's shoulder when the green flames flared to life at the same spot. I was like, are they related? It instantly loosened his grip. Having escaped death, Lan Sizhui was just about to thank Lan Jingyi for coming to his rescue when he saw that half of Lan Jingyi's uniform had been burned to ashes, making him look incredibly unkempt. Leandra saying we're gendering hands now. Flustered and enraged, Lan Jingyi stripped off the unburned half of his uniform as he looked back and yelled, "Why did you kick me, stupid lunatic? Did you want me killed?" Wei Wuxian scurried away, hugging his head. "It wasn't me!" It was most certainly he who had kicked Lan Jingyi. The outer robe of the Lan family's uniform was tightly embroidered with spells and incantations inside its lining to provide protection. However, the effect would have been nullified after one use when encountering a formidable creature such as this. Under these dire circumstances, Wei Wuxian could only give Lan Jingyi a kick to make him use his body to shield Lan Sizhui's neck. Lan Jingyi was going to yell some more, but Madame Mo collapsed to the ground. The flesh and blood of her face had been drained so utterly that only a layer of skin pressed against her skull remained. The man's arm that did not belong to her fell off of her left shoulder, yet its fingers could still move as it willed. It was as if it were stretching, the pulsing of its veins clearly visible. The thing was the evil that had been summoned by the spirit attraction flag. Dismemberment was a standard violent death. It was a little more dignified than the way Wei Wuxian had died, though not by much. Unlike being crushed to ashes, the limbs of a dismembered corpse retained a part of the grudge of the deceased. One would yearn to return to its body, yearn to die a complete corpse. Thus, it would also attempt to seek out the other parts of its body. Once found, the corpse would then perhaps rest in peace and satisfaction, or perhaps wreak greater havoc. If the rest of its original body wasn't found, however, a limb could only go for the second best option. What was the second best option? Seek out the bodies of living humans and make do, just as this left arm had demonstrated. Devour the left arm of the living, take its place, and suck out... Sorry. Oh my god. Thank you. Oh, out loud? Just kidding. What was the second best option? Seek out the bodies of living humans and make do, just as this left arm had demonstrated. Devour the left arm of the living, take its place, and suck out the living human's spirit, blood, and flesh. Then abandon the body to continue searching for the next host. This would continue until all parts of the original corpse were found. Once this arm attached itself to a body, it was instant death for the host. Though prior to the blood and flesh being completely eaten, the human could still move normally under the arm's control, as if still alive. After the arm had been summoned, the first vessel it found was Mo Ziyuan. The second vessel was Mo Ziyuan's father. When Madame Mo had told her husband to get lost, he'd acted out of character and pushed her. At first, Wei Wuxian had thought it was because the man was heartbroken because of his son's death, and that he had also had enough of his wife's unreasonable behavior. In retrospect, that had not been the demeanor of a father who had just lost his son. That had not been the stupor of despair. It had been stillness. The stillness of the dead. The third vessel was Atong, and the fourth was Madame Mo. The left arm took advantage of the chaos when the lights went out earlier to migrate to her body, and when Madame Mo was killed, the last cut on Wei Wuxian's wrist had also vanished with her demise. Seeing how the talismans were useless, but their clothes were not, all the Yanluth stripped off their outer robes and threw them at the left arm, covering and wrapping it in layers upon layers of robes like a thick white cocoon. A moment later, this ball of white clothes ignited with a whoosh, the wicked green flames blazing to the skies. Though it worked for the time being, it would not last long. Once the uniforms were completely burnt, that arm would break free from the ashes. While no one was paying attention, Wei Wuxian ran straight for the west courtyard. Over a dozen walking corpses those youths had captured were standing silently in the yard. A spell had been drawn upon the ground to seal them inside the boundary, and Wei Wuxian stomped on one of the characters, destroying the entire array. After 2 claps, the walking corpses jerked. Their white eyes opened abruptly, as if they had been shocked awake by an explosion of thunder. "Wake up," Wei Wuxian said. "Time to get to work." He never needed any complicated spells or summoning incantations to control corpse puppets. The most straightforward command would suffice. The walking corpses at the very front quivered as they struggled to shuffle a few steps. Then, the moment they approached Wei Wuxian, they fell face first to the ground like living humans, as if their legs had grown weak from terror. Not knowing whether to laugh or cry at this, Wei Wuxian clapped twice more, but much softer this time. However, these walking corpses had probably been born at the Mo estate and had died here as well. They'd never seen the world, so while they instinctively obeyed the summoner's command, they were also terrified of the summoner for some reason, lying on the ground, whimpering, too afraid to get up. The crueler the evil spirit, the easier it was for Wei Wuxian to manipulate it. These walking corpses had never gone through his training, so they could not withstand his direct control. He had no materials at his disposal to immediately create a device that could ease their fear either, and nothing wit to improvise. As he watched the blazing green flames from the east courtyard gradually die down, an idea suddenly came to mind. Why go out searching to find a cruel and vicious deceased, one steeping in extreme hatred? The East Hall already had one. More than one. He darted back to the east courtyard. Lan Sijue's first plan had come to an end, so he devised another. The youths all unsheathed their long swords, planting them in the ground to form a fence of blades. The ghost arms smashed about within the enclosure. It was taking all their energy just to hold the hilts in place and prevent them from being expelled by the force. No one had the time to pay attention to who was going in and out of the hall. Wei Wuxian stepped into the East Hall and yanked up the corpses of Madame Mo and Mo Ziyuan in each hand. In a low voice, he gave a command. "Awake yet?" At the sound of his voice, the souls returned. An instant later, Madame Mo and Mo Ziyan opened their white eyes and let out a shrill shriek unique to malicious ghosts at the moment of their resurrection. Amidst the high and low shrieks, another corpse crawled to its feet in trepidation, calling out feebly with a voice that could not have been any softer. It was Madame Mo's husband. The cries were loud enough, the hatred plentiful. Wei Wuxian was extremely pleased. "Recognize that arm out there?" He smiled. "Tear it apart," he ordered. The 3 members of the Mo family were like 3 blasts of black wind, blowing forth in an instant. That left arm had broken a long sword. Just as it was about to break out of the pen, 3 left armless, fierce corpses came lunging at it. Even aside from the fear of disobeying Wei Wuxian's command, these 3 carried an intense hatred for the creature that had killed them, and they unleashed all their fury upon the ghost arm. The one leading the attack was undoubtedly Madame Mo. Once reanimated, female corpses were often particularly ferocious. Her hair was flying wild, white eyes crawling with red, and her nails burst in length exponentially. She was foaming at the mouth, her shrill cries practically raising the roof, completely crazed. Mo Ziyan followed his mother closely, working in concert with her to both tear and bite at the left arm, while his father trailed behind them, filling in the gaps between the other 2 attacks. The Lan youths who had been struggling to hang on earlier were all stunned. They had only ever heard of such fights between fierce corpses from sundry books and hearsay. This was the first time they had witnessed such a gory scene, and they gawked, unable to avert their eyes. They only had one thought in their minds: "This is so exciting!" The 3 corpses and the 1 arm were in the throes of battle. Suddenly, Mo Ziyan shrieked as he dodged. That arm had swiped at his abdomen, and several ropes of his intestines drooped from the tear. Madame Mo snarled incessantly at the sight of this. She pulled her son behind her to shield him while escalating her attacks, her nails slicing through air as sharply as blades made of iron and steel. However, Wei Wuxian could tell she was slowly losing against the arm. Even 3 freshly dead corpses were working together could not subdue this 1 arm. Wei Wuxian watched the battle closely. He curled his tongue slightly, holding a sharp whistle back between his lips as he hesitated to let it loose. If he whistled, he could evoke greater hatred within the controlled fierce corpses, and that would perhaps turn the tables. However, it would be difficult to ensure no one noticed that he was the instigator. In the span of a second, that hand moved as fast as lightning, ruthless and precise as it snapped Madame Mo's neck. Seeing how the Mo family was being steadily beaten back, Wei Wuxian was just about to let loose the whistle he held under his tongue, when right then, 2 strums from a Wuxian sounded far in the distance. It's happening! It's happening! Hell yeah! Busting out the Wuxian for this. Where were we? Two notes were skillfully played, ethereal and clear, carrying with them the tinkling bleakness of windswept pines. The collection of demonic evils that were in the middle of a brawl all froze. The youths of the Lan clan of Gusu immediately beamed as if they had been resurrected. Lan Sizhui raised a hand to wipe away the blood on his face, then looked up, calling out in delight, "Hengguan Jun!" And there's a picture. See, it looks just like me. Oh, hell yeah. He is so cool and powerful. There's only 2 pages left. The moment he heard the cry of that sobriquet and the distant Wuxian, Wei Wuxian turned to leave. Another strum. This time the note was higher pitched, piercing through the sky like the austere harshness of winter's first approach. The three fierce corpses shrank back while covering one ear with their right hands at the same time. However, it was impossible to block out the eradication tone of the Lan clan of Gusu in such a way. They only managed to back up a few steps before there was the faint sound of cracking in their skulls. As for the left arm, after engaging in such a ferocious fight, hearing the sound of the strings now made it suddenly drop to the ground. Though its fingers still twitched, the arm was already lying limp and silent. After a short silence, the group of youths couldn't help but erupt in loud cheers, the sound filled with the jubilation of having survived. They had endured a terrifying night, and now that help from the clan had arrived, they couldn't have cared less if they were harshly punished later for disgracing a sect with a breach of etiquette. While they waved towards the moon, Hey, Dad! Lan Sizhui suddenly noticed someone missing. He tugged at Lan Jingyi. Where is he? Lan Jingyi was busy being happy and replied, Who? He who? That Mo Gongzi, Lan Sizhui replied. Huh? Why are you looking for that lunatic? Who knows? Maybe he was scared of getting beaten up by me and ran off somewhere. ... Lan Sizhui knew that Lan Jingyi was unmindful and straightforward, never thinking deeply on things or harboring suspicion. He thought to himself, I'll just wait until Han Guanzhong is down here, then report to him about the man in the incident. The Mo estate slumbered soundly, though whether the peace was real or fake was difficult to tell. Even though there had been a bloody corpse fight in the Mo Manor's east and west courtyards, no one was getting up in the middle of the night to watch it. One had to pick and choose the right spectacle to watch, and a spectacle with such incessant screaming was best avoided. Wei Wuxian rapidly destroyed any remaining evidence of the sacrificial ritual array, then ran out the door. Of all people who could have come, it had to be the Lan family. Of all people to come, it just had to be Lan Wangji. This was someone with whom he had once crossed paths and fought, so he retreated in a hurry. Anxious to find a steed, he passed by a courtyard. He noticed a spotted donkey tied next to a large millstone, chewing something in its mouth. It seemed a little surprised when it saw him coming dashing over, giving him a side-eye like a person would. The instant Wei Wuxian met its eyes, he was immediately moved by the disdain in its gaze. He went up to it, yanked off its rope, and started dragging it out. The spotted donkey loudly complained. Wei Wuxian cajoled as he dragged, coaxing it in every way possible to move it along. Stepping out in the lightning of dawn, they clattered onto the main road. Quick, someone give that donkey a little apple. We did it! That is the first 2 chapters. Meeps has been a member for a whole year. Thank you so much, Meeps. And says, can we talk about how MXTX's action writing has improved? Yeah, totally. I don't know how many years it was since she wrote Scum Villain, but you can definitely tell her writing improved. Yippee! I guess I should learn how to play this. Bet you never thought you'd hear Smoke on the Water played on a Wuxian. Yeah, describing his past with Lan Wangji as just someone he crossed path with and fought. Well, I'm glad you guys enjoyed the reading. That chapter, it does get pretty long. That was pretty long, but we got through it. And it's funny because the last time I went through the story, it was with the Untamed, And it's so funny how, like, censored that was. Like, it was not that gory, you know? Like, they can't show the ghosts or anything. So I feel like it was a lot more confusing in the Untamed to know what the fuck was happening. But the fact that there's, like, literally, like, ghosts, and they look scary, and they're fucking going crazy and ripping people up and jumping on the arm and everything, you know? So basically, there is some mega evil spirit that was a corpse that was dismembered, and it's trying to find its own body. But since it can't find its own body, it's just going around and sucking out people's essences and shit. And it seems that it found its own arm, but all it has is its arm, right? Sucking out essence. Missed connections. One sexy buff dismembered arm in search of a body. Yes! Tomorrow, we will have our members-only stream at 7 p.m. because I'm going away this weekend on summer vacation again. And yeah, I will post when we'll do another reading, but it will probably be Tuesday. Rejoice, we're doing another live stream. Every day means Tuesday is the title of the stream. Play Resentment of Chunshan. I'll learn it. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for coming to hang out for another stream. I'm so excited to delve more into Wuxian's story. And next week, are we gonna get some more Wuxian, some more Lamwenji? Awesome. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for making this so much fun. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Okay, bye!